Hello, beautiful visionaries. I'm your host, Lorna, and today I'm very excited to bring to you Shereen Sun. Shereen isn't your average business coach. Her work helps to awaken her clients' innate creative power and sacred purpose through understanding their unique elemental archetypes. She empowers and strategically supports women who are tired of the same old marketing tactics and want sustainable growth that feels aligned and authentic. She and I are going to talk about how to unleash your creativity and grow your sacred business and the role that psychedelic plant medicines might be able to play in this. Thank you so much for joining us today, Shereen.
Hi, Lorna. Thank you so much for having me. I've been so excited for this series and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, likewise, to have you on this series to be able to share your story and your wisdom and strategic advice for the audience. So I would love to start by asking, who are you and how did you get started as an entrepreneur?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. I was reflecting on this earlier today because I think it's always really surprising how we end up doing this work. I know I never expected to be a sacred business coach, and I started my career really as an artist and as an art educator. So I used to be a school teacher, and I was actually an art teacher in elementary schools. I was very passionate about creativity, and that really related to my own history of education. I was a creative thinker that fell through the cracks of my school. And so I kind of rehabilitated myself through the arts and became an art teacher because of that, with the desire to teach all different types of students how to create, including I did work with people who I had students on Skid Row, I had students in South Central LA, and then I was also working in very affluent parts of Los Angeles and Santa Monica and Malibu. So I was really getting to see the full spectrum. I loved teaching, and it very much informs my practice today, but it was not paying the bills. And I knew that I wanted to do something even more creative. I was feeling a bit limited by what I could do in the school system, in the classroom. I was a little uninspired by some of the things that I was seeing. And I also it wasn't the lifestyle I wanted to live. I had a hard time waking up that early and traveling all over LA and feeling underpaid and overqualified and undervalued. So it was then that I followed my intuition to start a nonprofit, actually, because I really wanted to be of service. A lot of the people that I work with are activists and have a heart for really being of service in the world. So I started a nonprofit. That nonprofit was to paint murals in communities. I really had a vision of supporting communities to make art, which is still very much something that I do. But again, that wasn't paying the bills. So it was deeply impactful, very rewarding, but I was still living out the broke artist, activist archetype. So it was then that I decided to start my business, and I hired my first business coach on a whim, another intuitive strike. I was like, I think in a few years I'm going to want to have a business, or I'm going to need to do something that's going to financially support me. So I might as well start now. My attitude was, this is going to take time, so let me just get started. I did not have a stable income. I did not know what I was going to do. And I pulled out a credit card and I hired my first coach on a 15-minute consultation call. And she taught me how to grow my audience. She taught me how to do summits just like you're doing now. And things just magically aligned. And I went through a very long process in business of figuring out where my sweet spot is, which ended up being teaching creatives and activists and spiritual beings how to make money and get paid for their creative work. So that's what I do now. And I've just been following the sparkly breadcrumbs, as Sam Bennett says, ever since. And so, yeah, I actually came to business coaching through being an art educator.
Okay, so yeah, I really resonate with the whole broke artist activist thing because I think there's a part of me that's like very much, those are my roots as well. Like I think many of us who are activist in, oriented just feel like, we're driven to do whatever we can to make the world a better place. And there's this, resistance around like charging a lot of money for it, or charging what you're worth, and then it's easy to get caught up in that place of like being undervalued, or in a sector that doesn't pay that well, and so it becomes this like kind of like like I'm not worth it, like and like this imposter syndrome thing. And so to break out of that can be like the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs
Yes.
and artists. So I'm curious to know like the kind of folks that you work with. So when you talk about a creative entrepreneur, what are you talking about? Are you,
Hmm.
a coach that coaches other coaches, or are you coaching like,
Hmm.
actual artists, who are
Hmm.
creating music labels and, and physical art and sculpture?
Hmm. Yeah. So the short answer is yes to all of that. There's different ways to work with me. The people that I tend to work the best with are, just like you said, creatives, artists, activists, spiritual. And a lot of times what they're coming to me for is just to figure out what is their sole purpose. Why are they here? What is their life's work? And that's where I really get to use the creativity work and the purpose work to help people really get clear on what their mission is. Why do they come to this planet? So that's the first piece, is really helping people understand how the things that you're creating can actually benefit the world and ideally get you paid for it. So that's where my sweet spot is. And then I do support lots of coaches, teachers, educators, healers. My clients, a lot of them are teaching their art form. They're teaching how to access their divine feminine, their spiritual sides, how to paint, how to draw, how to dance, how to work with the womb. Whatever it is that has healed them, we're now stepping into sharing. And my belief is, for a lot of people, they've done so much inner work. We've been to the ceremonies, we've sat on the cushion, we've done all the things. And now really the next level is to actually take up space and share your gifts and speak your truth. And for all of these groups, whether it's the healers, the artists, the activists, they're underlying, there's a common thread that we're used to undervaluing ourselves. We're used to being told there's not a place for our work at the table, or that we have to change. We have to adhere to society's description of what success is supposed to look like. We're going to be a starving artist if we pursue our creativity. So a lot of what I'm doing is helping all of these groups of people, and the people who are in multiple, do the money work and see the value of their offerings and how their contributions can really change the world, and also that they deserve to get paid for it too, so they can keep making the impact.
So you do a lot of work with plant medicines, and I'm really curious to know, as an entrepreneur myself, how your plant medicine work may have informed your business. And I will preface it by saying, as you've witnessed over the last few years, there seems to have been a rush of entrepreneurs that want to drink ayahuasca to mind hack their creative minds in order to develop that breakthrough mobile app, or like whatever it is, like to make more money. Essentially, there was this really funny Onion article where it was like, this shaman is so tired of leading tech CEOs to oneness, where all they can talk about is like, where they're going to get funding next and what mobile app they're going to build. So, there was a phase of that, right? And it was kind of interesting to witness. And but it's not really so straightforward and simple, right? Like it's not like you go to ceremony and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like I know what I'm gonna build. So how does it work? How do you work with plant medicines?
Yes. Well, I've been that whole story I told you, from being an art educator to the nonprofit to the business and then the business coach. I was drinking medicine the whole time, and I've been working with plant medicines for a long time as well, since my teenager years, really. But I was drinking medicine that whole time, and I wasn't necessarily thinking what's going to make me the most money, but I was praying about my purpose. And I was receiving visions and downloads of really why I'm here. And that would be a lot of the places where I would find some really deep clarity around what my next direction was, or to really trust my intuition with some of these things that were coming through that to most people would seem wild, but I was receiving the downloads and receiving the visions and ceremonies, and that gave me more direction to bring to, for example, a business coaching space. Because I think it's so important that we source our creative ideas and our business ideas from the mystery, from our creative selves. I think ceremony is a great place to really pray about your next steps and why you're here and why you came to this planet. And then if you can build a business around that and create a lot of impact, I think the byproduct of that is that you will be supported, because if you're giving value in the world, you're going to receive it back.
I think one of the challenging things that people can run into is, they go to psychedelic sessions or ceremonies, they have a psychedelic experience, and they see the vision of, what they're meant to do or who they can become or what their highest self looks like. And then after the ceremony is over, then they go back and there's reality. And how do you bridge that highest vision, that inspired vision that you receive in your sacred ceremony, and where you actually are? Because there could be a very big gap between, and the work that you have to do to get to that vision that you had, that you're absolutely sure that you're meant to be doing, like no doubt about it, like I'm, going to be that multi-millionaire, like blah blah blah, and then you're still like waiting tables or something. Like it's a big, so for a lot of people there's like a big gap. How do you begin to reconcile the gap in a healthy way, in a healthy, balanced way?
I mean, first thing, I'm a big believer in intentions and having a vision. So I think once you're clear what the vision is, then as you move throughout the world, you're going to start, I mean, at least for me, I start looking for opportunities to come into more alignment with that vision in every decision that I make and in the steps that I'm taking towards my purpose. So that would be one thing. I'm also a huge proponent in mentorship. So I have always had either a coach or a program, whether it's a business coach or whether it's like, okay, I received a message that herbalism is part of my work. So let me find a way to put myself in a container where I can learn from someone about that. So I'm always putting myself in positions where I'm getting support, where I have a place to get my questions answered, and where I can take all of this and start to implement it. And then once I have that, once I have someone who knows, who's walked the path before me that can give me their guidance, then I just take it and project manage it. So break it down into steps, figure out when I'm going to complete this. So I think everything that's going to happen needs a birthday. So if you know that you want to publish a book, for example, then I would start to reverse engineer what's it going to take. I would talk to people who understand the publishing industry. I would break down my book into steps and I would get those in my calendar. So I really believe in using your calendar to manifest things as well. So I think you just get to get serious about your intentions. Once you know what it is and you're praying about it and feeling into it, the steps present themselves, and then it's up to you to be disciplined enough to be consistent and make it happen. And if you need support or you need a container to be in to help you get there, then I believe that the people who are watching this, you out there, deserve that.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I noticed with spiritual folks often, because, if I was working with clients that have never really truly invested in themselves, and especially invested in a higher ticket type of program, there can be kind of a resistance around finding that mentorship and finding that support, and especially if it's their first investment in themselves. So do you have any advice on how somebody might get over that initial obstacle or blockage around investing an amount that feels a bit scary for that person? I mean, if we look at what's happening in the world right now and in the economy, a lot of people are, in difficult financial circumstances. But they might still have those big dreams. So how do you reconcile or recommend that they move towards their big dreams and, not uh, and find the resources to invest to move in that direction more quickly and not get
Mhm.
freaked out at the fact that, the economy is unstable in a lot of places.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very real thing and it's a very freaky thing, the instability of the economy. And there's so many resources out there. So it's important to find the right investment. So I want to be mindful to encourage people to not just constantly be searching for the next free thing, although there's a ton of incredible opportunities for you to get support and guidance for free. Like this summit is a perfect example. I'm sure people who are watching this have gained so much from it. And at the same time, you're seeing all of these different mentors who have a number of different offerings. And if you're finding that even just the idea of investing anything into your business is causing that panic and causing that fear, then that's not really about the price of what the thing is. It's more about your own fear and money mindset stuff that may be coming up, which what I know from doing money mindset work with people is a lot of times that has to do with understanding how valuable your work is and understanding that you are worth getting paid for it, which a lot of times even is just as simple as having someone sit with you and figure out what the messaging is of whatever it is that you're offering so that you can see the value and that other people can see the value. So I would say there's so many options. And even when I say mentorship, it doesn't even necessarily have to be paid mentorship. I think it's great if you can invest in yourself, but there's plenty of times where I have been supported by one way or another by someone who I basically asked if they would teach me something. So I think there's a lot of options. And if you find yourself resistant to it and you're just telling yourself it's not possible for you, then I would unpack that a bit because that is actually perhaps inherited scarcity patterns, programming around the state of the world. Like, yes, we're in a pandemic and the personal development industry is still booming and people are still investing. And there's people who probably want to invest with you, but you get to put yourself out there and start doing the work so that you can create an offer that really lands for your people. Does that help?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I'd like to touch upon is the fact that a lot of this work has now gone online. The pandemic has
Mm-hmm.
happened. It's so much more difficult to have a workshop, to have a big event, to organize a retreat. I mean, I don't know, what's happening in your neck of the woods, but, we're in lockdown. We're not in full lockdown where we can't leave our homes, but literally I'm in an island, lockdown where nobody can leave and nobody can come in. So how what is your best advice for folks that have some type of transformational offer to be able to start to offer that online as quickly as possible? For example, you and I both know there's different launch models. Like, this virtual summit is a launch model, an online challenge is another a launch model. And for a lot of folks, it seems really daunting. It's like a strategy that you have to learn, you have to master. It takes some time to plan and roll out. Do you have any recommendations for folks that are listening here that, might be an integration coach or, might be, some type of transformational specialist that works with psychedelic peeps? How should they be able to market themselves using the information?
Yes. I
Yeah.
love this question. And I was just like feeling into all of the different amazing gifts that are in the audience that are of the people who are watching this and how exciting it is that now you're in the place where you get to get it out in front of new people so that people can say yes to your offerings. So if you're just getting started, I think the most important thing you can do is begin to grow your audience so that you have people who are seeing you as the expert rather than just your friends and family who've been following you your whole life on your profile. We want to start bringing you in front of new people who get to see you in your magic and sharing about yourself, yes, and about this work that you're bringing and why it's helped you or how it's helped you and how it can help other people. So, my favorite thing to encourage my clients to do is to start collaborating with other people. And that's the summit is a perfect example of lots of amazing collaborations that you're doing, Lorna, and how powerful that can be for people who are tuning in and also for your own audience growth and how many people you're able to get in front of. So I think collaborations can come in so many different ways. Even if it's just asking somebody who inspires you, whose audience is similar to yours or bigger than yours, if they want to do an Instagram live together and just have a conversation. Or maybe there's a podcast in your future or a YouTube channel where you're interviewing people, or maybe you want to do a summit. Whatever it is, I would recommend collaborations and lots of it, especially because I feel like in the paradigm we're stepping into in business, especially as women of color, you and me, Lorna, we're both women of color. And I feel like there's something to be said about how we're stepping out of competition with one another and into generosity and supporting. I feel like we want to support each other, and it helps both of us when we get to collaborate and get to weave our magic together. So that would be my recommendation for all of you who are watching. Get out there, collaborate with people, get yourself in front of a new audience, start to grow your own following so that you have a steady stream of people who know what you do and how you can help them, so that when you do make an offer, there's people to play with you and to have fun with you.
One of the key aspects of collaboration, though, is being able to present each other to each other's audiences. So it tends to work a lot better when you already have an audience or have a list. So if you're doing some type of cross promotion via email, then you kind of need to both have email lists. If you're doing a cross promotion in Instagram, then you both have to have an Instagram audience. So what is your recommendation for somebody that really doesn't have a very big email list or much of an Instagram audience or Facebook audience? How do you make that collaboration seem appealing to the person that has the bigger audience?
Yes, this is a good question. So that's why I say at first, just to kind of flex your muscles and get yourself more comfortable with this process, find people who have a similar audience size as you, or a little bit bigger than you, so that you can start to flex your muscles. Now, I will say that when I did my first list building strategy, which was a summit, I didn't have an audience. But what I did have was a vision that was pretty cool, that I put a lot of intention to, that was woven in with my values. And I created an event that people wanted to be a part of. And then, even though it was very confronting, I went and with a lot of sincerity, with a lot of heart, asked my favorite thinkers and artists and musicians if they would be on my event. And some of them said no, but some of them said yes. And so I just went for it and took what I could get. And I asked people to share, and a lot of them did, and maybe some of them didn't, but it was still something. So even if you don't have an email list or an audience, I think if you put together something that's really cool that people want to be a part of, that's aligned to your values, then doesn't hurt to ask. And if they say no, that's okay. And they'll probably say yes later down the line once you're more established. But I think just getting in the habit of asking, sometimes there's something to be said for that as well.
Mm-hmm. How are you finding Instagram as a platform for business growth? I personally have not really gotten to Instagram so much. I'm firmly in Facebook world. I'm running Facebook ads. I do virtual summits and funnels. But, Instagram, I've just kind of been like, that's yet another thing like Twitter. I can't deal with Twitter. Um, but there's a lot of folks in Gen Y, millennials that are on Instagram. So do you have any tips for the Instagrammers in the audience on how to grow your business on that platform?
Yes, I love Instagram.
Oh,
And I love Instagram, and I have like I don't want to say love hate, but kind of that relationship with its algorithms and with the changes that it makes. So, but what I will say about Instagram, the reason why I like it is because it's very creative, it's very aesthetic, it's very visual, and I am a visual person. So I like to bring the vibe through the visuals on Instagram. What I would say about Instagram is that I would encourage you to think about what kind of content is really going to speak to your audience that they would identify with and that they would want to share. So I'm always in my Instagram content, I'm constantly being challenged to go deeper. And I find that if I'm just trying to follow strategies or do what I think is supposed to work, that it actually doesn't. And what does work is depth, sincerity, and also being to the point a lot of times. So things like shareable graphics, for example, keeping those really short, and something that, again, people will look at this and say, I want to share this because it's going to reflect some part of me, which requires me to be vulnerable and to really think of what am I here to say, and to say it clearly and succinctly. And so that's what I'm going for. I'm going for creating content that people really resonate with and identify with, that shows a deeper side of me and shows a lot of different sides of me. So on Instagram, I'm definitely sharing a lot of my personality. I feel like my Instagram sees more of my personality than any other platform. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I want to say
Well,
about
what about like Instagram and conversions, right? So people on social media, they'll engage, they'll like, they'll share, but
Mhm.
I'm into list building, you're into list building. So, I mean, how do you get Instagram to convert?
Right. So with Instagram, to me, again, it's about relationships. So it's about the people who are watching me over time and seeing me as a teacher, seeing me as a human, seeing me as an artist, and they're engaging and they're responding and they're DMing and they're commenting and they're replying. And so you start to just see who are the people who are listening, who are paying attention. And then a lot of times it's about personal reach outs and connecting with people. And over time, that will lead to them booking a call, and a lot of times the people that come from Instagram are ready to invest in the high level because they understand who I am, and they've been following me over time. So that's one thing. And then I'm always just trying to diversify. So, I've got the link in my bio, and then I put things in my stories, and then there's a reel. And so it's a whole world over
It
there
is
for
a whole
me.
world. Okay, so social justice, politics, and spirituality. So one of the things I've noticed in this past year, um, and the prior year, is that, a lot of coaches, a lot of spiritual coaches, a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs have really refrained from making any kinds of commentary around what's going on in the world, what's going on politically, even if what's going on is just horrible, right? So we saw George Floyd, that whole tragedy happen, and more people witnessed it than ever because, hey, everyone was in lockdown and glued to social media. Whereas, like, it probably would have just, as so many other acts of police violence have just kind of, not been noticed by vast majority of the population. So I feel like this year was an important year for social justice, in the sense of really raising awareness of how deeply entrenched systemic racism and oppression and state sponsored violence actually is. But I would like to see more spiritual business people be vocal about it and make a stand rather than try to be neutral and try to not be polarizing. So, what are your thoughts about how to be politically and socially engaged as a business person? And knowing that if you do so, you might lose a sale.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Ooh, this is a big question and a very relevant question because we're just getting out of 2020, where we really got to see the values of the people around us and the people that we've been connecting with and collaborating with and friends with. So I've been in a deep process this whole last year of really coming into a lot greater alignment with my values. And as with as with anything that comes up in my personal spiritual life, weaving those changes in through my business as well. So, yes, I was noticing, I think a lot of us noticed the people who did not say anything or said one thing in March and then never touched it again.
Or said the
Or,
worst thing.
yes, yes. And so I personally have, um, let me think. So I do feel that one thing that I've learned over the last year is that for me, social justice and liberation and spirituality are totally connected. And for me, they're not separatable. You know, I think the point of us doing this spiritual work is so that we can help our communities and help the world and create more diversity and more justice and more inclusion in the world. So to me, I can't separate those things. And that is my own personal worldview. So I really feel, and especially when we're talking about a sacred business, I feel anyone with a platform um, should be speaking up about these issues, about racism in particular, and about diversity and inclusivity and equity. So yeah, I guess that is what I want to say, is that it's so important that you can really connect your business to what's actually happening on this planet and do your part. If that means speaking up, if that means creating more equity in your programs, um, any opportunity that you can take a stand, I feel like it's our obligation to, and it's good for business as well. Um, so yeah, let me know if that answers your question, if you have any follow-ups on that.
Yeah. So, what would your response be to the spiritual business owners that, as part of their sacred business, believe that we're all one and there is no color? There really isn't structural racism because
Mm-hmm.
white people can be poor too, and a
Mm-hmm.
person of color can be wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and they're being really vocal about it too, and saying, well, these riots about race and police oppression and all that, they're actually they're crisis actors, and
Mm-hmm.
they're being fomented by Antifa, or you know what I mean? And they're not really like, people that have,
Gosh.
yeah, there's a
Yes.
lot of that, right? What do
People.
you say about that?
What do I say about that? You know, I went through a large process around that too, around my grief and my rage at some of the things that I had been seeing
Mm.
in the spiritual new age plant medicine slash entrepreneurial community. Um, I tried to say my piece in a few situations to people who were particularly close to me, and I did not feel that it was going anywhere. Um, like it didn't seem to make much of a difference. And it was a lot of energy on me. It was a lot of emotions on me. Meanwhile, I have a program full of incredible clients, many of whom are women of color, many of whom are LGBTQ, like myself. And so I personally have shifted my focus to uplifting people in this industry and to helping and to centering women of color and centering LGBTQ folks and helping them take up as much space as possible, because I know that it's our time and I know that those beliefs are dying out, and it's a worldview that is dying out, I hope and I think. And what I can do and my part has been to help more women of color and LGBTQ folks take their seat at the table and share their gifts. And so to those people, I'm kind of just like, keep being vocal and doing your thing, because you're doing the work for us. You're showing us exactly where your values are. And I just feel my energy and time is better focused supporting the change that I do want to see and creating the world that I do want to see, rather than focusing on the people who just don't seem to get it. And my energy is not best spent trying to help them get it, because that's not really healthy for me either. And it's been such a gift to come more in alignment to my own values over the last year in this way. And it has been a lot of grief too, because I've let go of a lot of people who I once thought were my community, people who I prayed in ceremonies with, who I considered family for years and years and years and years. But at the same time, it's necessary for me to do to honor myself. And yeah, I just think it's such a gift to get to live in alignment with our values and lead our businesses from that place too, because that's what makes it really truly sacred. That's what makes this deep spiritual work. And without that, I don't know, I question the level of spiritual work that's actually happening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those powerful words and the inspiration as well, and great advice on staying focused to what you can truly change. We're at the end of our time together. I'd love to ask you what your free gift is for the audience.
Yay. Okay. So, what I'm sharing with the audience is my free 5-day magical money mindset challenge. So, this is going to support you to really understand what your relationship is to money right now is, where you inherited those beliefs from, where scarcity or lack or limitation might be secretly running the show in your business and your results, and really help you focus on what you want to create, why you're here, what your values are, what you need to do to get there, and what kind of support you need. So it's a really, really deeply transformational 5-day challenge. It's totally free. It'll take you an hour a day. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it too. So I highly, highly recommend that you check it out. And I look forward to seeing your responses in your home play when you do.
Wonderful. I'm going to put the link down below this video. Thank you so much again. How can the audience best stay in touch with you?
Yes. So join the Magical Money Mindset Challenge, and then you'll be on my email list. And so you'll get all the updates there. And then if you're active on Instagram, you can follow me at Radiant Wild Heart. That's my business name, Radiant Wild Heart. So at Radiant Wild Heart on Instagram, and on Facebook, I have a Facebook group called Wild Heart Entrepreneurs, which is a free resource place for you to ask questions. So if you want to hang out with us on Facebook, we're in the Facebook group Wild Heart Entrepreneurs. Yay.
Love it. All right. Links down below. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Wishing you all the best. Stay safe out there, and looking forward to the next time we might possibly meet up in person again.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.